Hey there, Twisters, and welcome, hockey fans. Welcome to our rankings. Because the Stanley Cup Final isn't starting until Saturday, I thought it'd be fun for us to rank the various NHL dynasties that have come since the 1967 expansion era. So I'm going to very loosely define what a dynasty is for this stream. Otherwise, we'd only have like 3 or 4 teams to rank here. So the Hockey Hall of Fame defines a dynasty as a team that was able to win at least 3 Stanley Cups within a 4-year window. So we're going to expand this quite a bit. We're going to talk about teams that had a consistent core of players who were able to string together many successful deep runs in the playoffs and get to winning multiple cups and also maybe even appearing in some finals as well, even if they didn't win the cup. So that's how we're going to define a dynasty. So let's have some fun with this one. We've got 13, I think, different teams to rank here. And hopefully we can have you along for the duration of this stream. And of course, if you're new here and want more content like this, I think you know what to do. Anyway, we've got Nick here and Chance. Hello. Thank you for being the early birds. I hope you don't mind hanging around for just a little bit here. I want to make sure we have a bit of an audience first, right? Let's see if we can get 15 or 20 people here. Rails and Riley, what's going on? All right. I'm glad I'm sure just about everybody here is excited for the Stanley Cup Final. It's kind of crazy that we have to wait all the way until Saturday, but I mean, that gives both teams an opportunity to be very well rested for this. So I think that we can be appreciative and that we should get some great competitive hockey there. So just hang out for the time being while we wait until some other folks join us here. Yeah, we got Cortana hanging out with us. So whoop, there she is, being a good girl as always. We were just throwing the Frisbee around for a while there. And she even at 9.5 years old, she's able to snatch Frisbees out of the air with quite the high level of precision, let's just say. So anyway, I see that we have 6 or 7 people here. This is kind of coming in unannounced, so we need to give people some time to join, considering they weren't expecting it. Obviously, if you're watching this after the fact, then by all means, feel free to skip ahead. But yeah, we'll have sad because the Celtics lost. Yeah, they kind of went out with a whimper there. You would have thought that they would have done it, pulled it off. That would have only been what, the third or fourth reverse sweep in NBA history, right? Actually, no, it's never. No, wait, it's never been done this late in the finals though. Afton, yeah, man. Speaking of going out with a whimper there, man. The Stars. I guess if your favorite team wears green, it was not a good time rooting for them in the postseason this year. Forum blue and gold. Yes, Forum blue. The LA Kings. How you doing there, Toria? Yeah, I'm glad that you're here because I believe you like the Red Wings and the Avalanche because we are going to touch on both franchises in their heyday. What's up, Darren? I need another Sharks video feeling sad about the future. Hopefully they get Michkov. I saw a stick handling video from him. I think that was posted yesterday or the day before. Yeah, I'm hoping that we can nab him. I'm not too well versed on these prospects, but as long as we don't trade the pick away, that's all I'm concerned about. The first in NBA history. Really? Wow. So yeah, the reverse sweep has only happened like 4 times in the NHL, and outside of that, it's only happened once in baseball, right? In MLB. It's happened a few times in Japanese baseball. I know that. But in terms of North American sports, that's about it. Brody, what's up? Thanks for hopping in here. 2 playoff disappointments at TD Garden this year. Wait, were the Celtics? They weren't the 1 seed though, were they? I don't think they were. But that's as much as I know about basketball. If we were talking about 20 years ago, then yeah, I would have had a say in that a lot more so. Still working on trying to go to the draft. That would be almost a once-in-a-lifetime experience, huh? Oh, your parents work for the Sharks? You don't say. All right. Well, hopefully they're able to stick it out for when the team actually gets good here. Anyway, we got a vocal chat here, so that's pretty good. I ideally would like to have more people here, but I don't want anybody to feel like I'm wasting their time. So let's get started, okay? So you can probably see this on my screen. I zoomed in just about as much as I need to. So we have a total of, I think, 13 teams. Now, So what I'm doing here is I'm defining a dynasty very loosely. Otherwise, this stream wouldn't happen at all. But I think it's a fun topic anyway. So these are teams who, after the 1967 expansion era, right, when the NHL went from 6 teams to 12, these teams were able to win multiple Stanley Cups, right, 2 or more, with a consistent core of players. So maybe they got back to the final and didn't win as well. I mean, there are only a handful of dynasties since 1967. So that's why I decided to open this up a little bit. So we have only 4 tiers here because it's a smaller list, right? So at the bottom, we have, you call that a dynasty, right? Like where maybe one of the team got kind of lucky there, or, maybe they were just a flash in the pan and weren't able to get back to the final after that. The B tier is like, it's a good run the team had for a few years there, but maybe not like a true dynasty. A tier would be, I would think, a dynasty to an extent that could probably contend with some of the better teams that we've seen in our time watching the NHL now. And then S is like the GOAT tier, the God tier. I would only think that at the most we'd have three teams in this tier, maybe only just 2. So, oh, and your dad works for the Warriors. Right on. Well, I wonder who you're going to work for then. Yep, and of course we got Cortana here. Here. Whoop. That's a good girl. All right. Tampa's dynasty wasn't that good. They really fell down fast. Well, I mean, you can make the argument that it eventually just kind of caught up with them. And, could they still be a playoff team next year? Maybe. But don't forget, I mean, this team was no, I don't think you're spamming at all. Don't forget that core of players, though, they were around. A lot of them were around in 2015. So we'll get into that as we do these rankings here. Okay. Oh, Rick, I didn't even notice you there with the new pick. All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up our first poll here. Nice Tapara hat. Thank you. This was gifted to me from one of our channel members. Okay, so the first team is going to be the Bruins. So I'll say the 70s Bruins. How about that? Right, so right in the tiers down here. Okay. No, that's not spamming whatsoever. Okay. Can't wait for the final. I mean, it's something that's probably been on your mind for quite some time. All right, so here is our tier. So the Boston Bruins, they won the Cup in 1970 and 1972. Now, they also went to the final 3 more times in that decade, albeit the core had kind of shifted by then, but they also were in the final in 74, 77, and 78. So it started out, of course, with the legends that are Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito, Johnny Busick. Later on, the core would be based around players like Terry O'Reilly, Rick Middleton, and Brad Park. Now, those teams later on in the decade had Don Cherry as the coach, whereas earlier on, actually, I think the Bruins had 2 different coaches at that time. So anyway, to make this as great of an experience for everybody, I do encourage everyone here to cast a vote. Even if you're not the most well-informed, that's fine, because, I mean, if you couldn't guess, I wasn't around during this era. All right. As a Leafs fan, you might be a little biased. Oh, what's up, Junie? Oh, no, Afton, you're good. You're good. As long as we keep it PG, we're fine here. So that's not a problem. Anyway, so yeah, everybody cast a vote if you can. It's our first team here. So the Bruins, right? Early 70s, right? They beat the St. Louis Blues, who were an expansion team in that first Cup, 1970. 72, I can't remember who they beat for this one, but let me check on that. In 1972, they beat the Rangers. Yes. If you're a fan of any of these teams, I have a feeling what you'll say, but that's fine. That's fine. As long as we have enough people here, then I'm sure that the votes will even themselves out. But yeah, everybody please cast a vote, so then that way we can get as best of a representation of our community of viewers here. Cortana's happy. Yeah, she's really happy. We were at the park for about 30 minutes just before we went live here. Good girl. And then you also have to consider, in this case, there weren't as many teams in the NHL, but of course, the Bruins in that decade were able to get to 5 finals. So that is certainly good. Okay. What are your thoughts, everybody? Ooh, actually, I'd like to change the thumbnail if I can. While we're still waiting for the votes to come in, of course. My multitasking game is always on point. All right, we have 12 votes. Okay, so how about I give you guys about 20 more seconds? If you haven't cast a vote yet, then please do chime in. That would be pretty rad. Should be able to get this changed. There we go. Okay. No, and no to that, and no to that. There we go. Yes, this will work. And Cup Dynasties Anthem. All right. We got 13 votes. I think we'll probably tap out here. Actually, I see a couple other people joining. So cast your vote if you haven't already. Yeah, Elias is second time in your first 6 years. I don't know if there's ever been a team like in the last 25 years or so that can say the same thing about getting to the final that quickly. So I hope you've enjoyed the run so far, right? It's always about the journey, not always about the destination. And let's see here. I just want to add the thumbnail here. There we go. That's better. I don't know. That might be better. All right. So let's close out here, and closing it out in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Zane, thanks for hopping in here. And Nate, nice picture. Pulling for you guys, of course. All right. So, okay, the plurality here. So the tier with the most votes was the B tier. So what I'm going to do is right now I'm going to stick it in the B tier, Gigi. But these rankings can change based on how we rank the other teams as well. So this could actually move into the A tier given the representation of votes or the distribution of them. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one here, and that will be the 1970s Philadelphia Flyers. All right, so Flyers, 1970s Flyers. All right, guys, here we go. 70s Flyers. So they won back-to-back Stanley Cups in 1974 and 1975. They also went to the final in 76 and in 1980. That was still with Bobby Clarke, excuse me. And they went to the Cup, I think, 2 other times later in the 80s, but I wouldn't really count that. That wasn't really the same core. But the core of players that won these Cups included the likes of Bobby Clarke, Bill Barber, both of whom are Hall of Famers. Bernie Perrant, I think, is also a Hall of Famer. Reggie Leach and Fred Shero was the coach for both of those runs. So where would you rank them? B again, when it gets to 3 to 4 in a row goes, yeah, I probably would agree with you there, Brody. Especially since like in the 1980s, the NHL had even more teams than it did in the 70s. So, I mean, Zane, you could even argue that the Islanders were like the Stanley Cup Final for the Lightning because they gave them the toughest run for their money. So, Rick, who is your least favorite team, or maybe give me 2 or 3 teams that you just genuinely don't care for as much? Put the Flyers at A because they made the finals in every decade. Well, but the thing is, we're focusing on I'm defining a dynasty as multiple cups with the same core of players. So whatever they did in the 90s or yeah, whatever they did in the 90s or in 2010 doesn't have a role in these rankings. Just no Bruins for Rick. Happy Tuesday, Bill. Okay, I hear you now, Rick. All right. But yeah, I want everybody to vote. We got 14 votes, about 15 viewers, so that's good. I'll give you guys about 15 seconds. So if you have yet to cast a vote, by all means, please do. And if anybody's just joining us, we're defining a dynasty much more loosely here for teams that came after, or after the '67 expansion era. Multiple cups with the same core of players. So that's what's up. All right. Cool. All right. So let's close this out in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. So this is interesting, right? Because here we have 7% for S tier. We have 42% for A tier, 28 for B tier, and C tier is 21. So I'm looking at this, guys. Is this grading out better? It's actually about the same. It's got more votes in the C. So I would say that even though there's a higher turnout for A, it's relatively speaking, I think it would go just behind the Bruins. I don't know. Let me know if I need to redo this though. Because yeah, the percentages here are certainly distributed differently. All right, let's go to the next one. '70s Canadiens. All right. All right, let's talk about them. So yeah, the Canadiens. So actually, you could even argue that this goes all the way back into the '60s. It could even start with like 1968 when they won the cup then, and I think in '69 as well. However, that was still when the finalists were you would have the expansion teams play each other in the same conference. So I'm not really going to count that. However, with what the Habs could do from 76 to 79, I mean, they had as many as like 8 or 9 Hall of Famers on their team at one point. That's incredible. So some of the players that were on those teams in the late 70s included, of course, Guy Lafleur, rest in peace. Ken Dryden, maybe the best goaltender of all time before, we talk about the great goaltenders of the 90s. Larry Robinson, one of the best defensemen of that era. Steve Shutt, Jacques Lemaire, Serge Savard, Bob Gainey, Guy Lapointe, Captain Yvon Cournoyer. I'm sorry if I don't know how to say that. And of course, coaching them, the legend, Scotty Bowman. Yeah, it's incredible looking back and even at that time, even though there weren't quite as many teams, to have 8 Hall of Famers on one team at that time is pretty nuts. Pretty nuts. The Habs' reign was one of the best ever. I mean, some people might say that they won what 5 in a row in the 1950s. I want to say Canadiens, Islanders, and Oilers should all be S tier. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to argue, that there's anybody else that should join their company, but we'll get to those teams soon enough. All right, we got 13 votes. So finish casting your votes here. I'll give you 15 more seconds. Cournoyer. All right. I'll just call him Yvonne. Cournoyer. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Merci. All right, let's wrap this up in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Play and Lego. Hello. Thank you for hopping in here. All right. This one to me is no surprise, right? So 69, 15, 7, 7. All right. So that easily goes into the S tier, right? All right, awesome. Let's go to the next team. And I mean, this is nuts, right? Because these teams from 76 all the way up until 1988, there were three teams that won the Stanley Cup. Three franchises, I should say, except for the Calgary Flames in 86. All right. So we've got the 80s Islanders. All right. So now let's look at what they were able to do. So, of course, winning the cup 4 years in a row. They also went to the 84 final as well, but of course they lost to the Edmonton Oilers. Now, this core, I forgot to write down all the players who were on there, but you had the likes of Brian Trottier, you had Denny Potvin, you had Mike Bossy, the late great, and Clark Gillies as well, rest in peace. Billy Smith in goal, right? But Pat LaFontaine would actually come later on. But those are kind of the big four players from that sort of era. My reaction when the Knights beat the Stars, I didn't really watch it, so I don't really have much to say about it. But anyway, great fundamentals. The Knights have some of the most impressive fundamentals that I've seen in recent history. Still rank the Habs a little higher than the Isles. Still an S. All right, so cast your votes, friends. You think the Habs, they had a more stacked roster? Yeah, and there wasn't really that much time in between, right? So I can see where you're coming from. Favorite old school NHL logo? I have a video on that where I rank basically classic hockey logos that are no longer in use. So just like look up logo rankings, and then you can find out for yourself. I think I had like, I don't know, about 40 logos that I ranked in that video. Hey, what's up, Jay-Z? You're preaching to the choir, my friend. 4 cups in a row is very dynastic. Yes, indeed. Okay, let's wrap up this team in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, Eddie Olczyk is going to work for the Penguins, huh? That's crazy, man. He was just in Seattle as a broadcaster for a year. I'll take that job if they're looking for somebody. I'd do anything to get on the mic with John Forsland. All right. Winter Classic Stadium Series logos? You mean, like on the actual jersey, not the actual like game logos. I think that's what you mean. All right. Anyway, 60% to 40. Okay. All right. Well, that's good enough for S tier, at least right now. All right. Now let's get to the Edmonton Oilers. My goodness. What a run they had. And of course, they also got to the final the year before they started this dynasty. 80s Oilers, which also includes 1990. All right, we've got S, A, B, and C. All right. Of course, these Oilers had the great one for 4 out of those 5 cups, but it was Mark Messier in 1990. And that core didn't have all that many of the returning players, but still, you had Messier captaining that team. You had Paul Coffey on these cup teams. You had Grant Fuhr, right? And shoot, why am I not remembering their coach? Al Arbor was the coach for the Islanders, by the way. He won every Stanley Cup with them. Glenn Sather, I know at least won a couple of them, right, with the Oilers. But I don't really think I need to talk this up too much more in that I think everybody knows who was on these teams, right? Yari Curry, of course. But yeah, Glenn Sather won. He won 4 of the cups. He wasn't the coach when they won in 1990, though. The coach of that team was John Muckler. All right. Not as familiar with that. Clickbait news articles on Dubas. What else did you expect, right? takes a break from the NHL. I mean, that's a lot for somebody to take on at that point in their career, just generally speaking. So, I mean, especially going straight to Toronto, it wasn't like, he was an assistant GM for, this is not throwing anybody under the bus, but he wasn't like an assistant GM with the Panthers and then, was the GM for the Coyotes. Like he went straight to the Maple Leafs for NHL. So I could totally understand if he needs to, take some time away. And not to mention, I mean, like he's got young children. It's like he didn't get as much time with them, that sort of thing. So anyway, Salty, what's going on? Hey, this is just the stream for you, is it not? Okay, let's get into the poll here, guys. So how we doing? We got 9 votes. We're gonna need some more votes. I gotta get at least a dozen here before we can make up a, give a proper ranking here. So cast your vote if you have yet to do so. I should have at least put a little pretty border around the thumbnail. I think I can do that right now. Dun, 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 dun. Because you have to obsess over every detail if you want to make it on the tube. Alrighty. There we go. How are we doing on votes, everybody? Got 11 votes. Keep them coming. The early 90s Penguins were pretty good. Oh, that's going to be our next team. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to touch on. I'll just say that. Really? Is that what we're doing? Okay. There we go. That should be fine. All right, we got 11 votes. If you've yet to cast a vote, I would certainly appreciate you doing so. No, I don't want to do that. All right. I ain't no king, man. If anything, I'm a jester. All right. Actually, you know what? Even though we only have 11 votes, that's okay because I think we already know where to put this team, right? Maybe we'll do a little face-off at the end where we have to determine who the ultimate GOAT is, though, right? So at this point, the Oilers are the top dogs, right? They have the highest percentage. Yes. Yes, for the win. All right, so the Oilers are going to the very front. But again, we can do a face-off maybe at the end of the stream. All right, let's go to the next one. That is the Pittsburgh Penguins of the early 1990s. So these Pens, I'm curious to get your thoughts, guys, because they never went to the Cup Final after 1992. And yet, they have one of the most impressive rosters of that era in the likes of course, Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, Ron Francis, right? Tom Barrasso in goal, Paul Coffey, Kevin Stevens. Who else am I missing? They even had Brian Trottier on at least one of those teams, right? Who else am I missing on that team? Larry Murphy, don't forget him too. And of course, they were also coached by Scotty Bowman. So, curious to get your thoughts on this, right? One of the best rosters assembled, and yet they have 2 cups, but no other finals appearances. All right. Ulf Samuelsson was on the team too. I'm sure that some people would probably want to forget about that. Mullen. There's a town that I live, or that I'm near called Mullen. And every time I think of Mullen, I think of Rodney Mullen, the skateboarder. But yeah, Larry Murphy, of course. Lemieux between the legs. Or how about Lemieux scoring 5 goals 5 different ways? That's pretty bonkers. the Neely beef or something like that. Cam Neely. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, you know what, Salty? While you guys cast your vote, I'm going to do something, okay? Because I actually have that highlight in my next sudden death sports video. And whilst we wait for people to cast their votes, I'm actually going to play a trailer. So premiering June 1st, that's this Thursday on Sudden Death Sports. Oh, wait, shoot. My video trailer was too large to upload here. I can probably still export it again. But anyway, yeah, so June 1st on Sudden Death Sports, our featured topic is the 5 Stanley Cup runs that were wrecked by Scott Stevens. Who do I have in the finals? I don't know if I'm exactly the guy to ask about that. But I mean, do I believe the Panthers can get it done? Yeah, I do. I think that if it's going to be anything, it's going to be a combination of Bobrovsky and I mean, you can't say that neither team wants it, but like I got to be thinking the Panthers, the Knights block shots better than anybody. Don't get me wrong. There's just something the way the Panthers are rolling that I had kind of blinders on my eye going into that conference final. Not that the Hurricanes didn't play well, because they did. But anyway, that'll be enough of that. All right, so we have only 11. We have 11 votes. If anybody has yet to cast a vote, please do so, because then that way we get a better representation of our community. Radko Gudas, a Game 7 triple overtime winner. Okay, you can take a screenshot of that, Brody. And if Gudas scores the overtime winner in Game 7, I'll just say it doesn't have to be triple overtime. It can be overtime of Game 7 if it's Radko Gudas. Then I will buy you a Radko Gudas jersey. You take a screenshot of that right now. Adidas too. Bob's going to outperform Hill. The thing is that can the Panthers test Hill? I don't think Hill's been tested all that much. He's played excellent, but the Panthers, can they give him a bigger challenge? Not to mention, I gotta credit them. I know the Knights' penalty kill was really good against the Stars. The Panthers' power play has looked really good, though. Their special teams has been a pleasant surprise. All right, guys. Well, let's close this out in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. The Delandria goal was soft. Well, I mean, Hill doesn't even start that many games in the first place, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to let in 1 or 2 of those here or there. Let's see here. Okay, so A is 41%, B was 33%, 16 and 8. Okay, now we got to figure out where to put this team. So a lot of people would think A tier, right? But let's see here. 53, 40. I'm just looking at the math here, guys. 53, Boston, because Boston and Philly are in the B tier. Now, the Penguins outperformed Philly. Barely, but they did. Did they outperform Boston? I think it's about a push. So for right now, I would probably put the Penguins between the Bruins and the Flyers. Now, could these teams be promoted to the A tier at some point? Maybe. All right. The odds of that happening is 1 in a million. See, but I'm giving you a chance, right? All right. Let's go to the next one here. So we've got the Devils. And again, that's the subject of our video tomorrow or on Thursday on Sudden Death Sports. So the 90s and 2000s Devils. And go Cats go. That's what I like to see. All right. So the Devils. Okay. Let's see how my multitasking is now. Because I want to play that Stevens trailer for you guys. Oh, wait. Did I upload that somewhere else? Actually, I did. But anyway, we'll figure that out. A friend of yours is looking for a white Carter Verhaeghe jersey. Oh, boy. That's going to be tough. Because not that many sites carry it. I like Sports K a ton. However, If you're looking for somebody in Canada, the shipping isn't free from Sports K. I think it's like $25 or something like that because they're in Michigan. And I don't think they're customizing jerseys anymore there. So yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know if Cool Hockey's carrying it. I've been out of the jersey game for quite a long time now. So yeah, I can't recommend anything specific if you're looking for customized away Panthers jerseys. But if you want a blank jersey, I might be interested in selling mine. I have an Adidas, but I mean it's a size 50. But anyway, trying to give you as much food for thought there. All right. Got 10 votes. All right. Keep them coming, everybody. Keep them coming. Yeah, Nick might be Windy City. You might be correct here. Sports K's in Michigan? Yeah, they are. They are wonderful vendors from beautiful Great Lakes State that I've never visited in my life. All right. Let's go to demo. So yeah, this Devils team, by the way, I didn't touch on it earlier. They won, obviously 3 cups, 1995, 2000. They nearly won the next year in 01. They lost in Game 7 to the Colorado Avalanche, and then they went back in 03. And of course, in that group of players, you had Scott Stevens, you had Scott Niedermayer, Ken Danico, Martin Brodeur, of course, Patrick Elias. I don't think he was there for all 3 teams. McGillney was on the team for one or two of those championships. So they did have some good players, but of course, when it came to defense and goaltending, that was their strength, bar none. They also had Claude Lemieux on that team in 1995. Don't forget. All right. Any further votes? We have 14 votes. Good. All right. Let's wrap this up in about 10 seconds. Pat Burns was the coach for one of the teams. Yeah. Larry Robinson was a coach or the coach for one of those teams. And then I think the other was Jacques Lemaire, if I'm correct, right? Let's export that. Yeah, we'll do this in just a moment here. I'll get you a 720p for the trailer. Boom. Love it. There we go. It's so hard to get a white jersey. Yeah, Adidas hasn't done that great of a job of making them available for the less popular teams, let's just say. All right. Let's close this out then in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. All right. So we might have a definitive A tier here, I think. So 64% A tier, 28% B tier. It didn't get any S tier, but considering it got that much for the A tier, I think it's appropriate to put them in A tier. All right. Now we're going to get to the Avalanche. So 90s. All right. Would we rank them S tier, A, C, or B, or Charlie? Now, this team, what's interesting is that there wasn't all that much carryover. I know there was a 5-year gap. The Avalanche were always a very good team, but in terms of their core, it wasn't that consistent between the 2 Stanley Cups. Of course, you had absolute legends though in the likes of Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, and Patrick Waugh. Adam Foote was kind of the other more memorable name that won both Stanley Cups. But of course, later on, you would get Ray Bourque for 2001, Milan Hajduk, Alex Tanguay, and of course me here, and also Bill. They can let us know about who else was a part of those teams. Not to mention they swept for one of their Stanley Cup Finals, so that's pretty impressive. I got to say that's pretty impressive. And then they had to take down the Devils in 7 games as well. So even though they didn't get to any other finals in that time span, I think that their championship series performances were pretty darn good. Alex Tanguay scored. You're saying he scored the winner in Game 7? They won that one pretty convincingly, right? 340 on NHL Shop. My gosh. I am so sorry to hear that. Oh, that's like fully customized. I got it. Yeah, keep that going. And then after that, we're talking about the the Red Wings. That's going to be an interesting one. 3-1, yeah. I think they were up 3-0 at one point. Kind of another interesting way to rank this would be we could rank maybe Stanley Cup Final matchups. Like this one for me would be really high up, right? Devils versus Avalanche. Those were two titans, right? 2 goals and an assist. That's money. All right, how are we doing on the votes here, folks? All right, we got 10 votes. Definitely keep them coming, guys. Canadian Tire, $50 for a screen printed jersey. It's probably similar to what you can find at like Costco or something like that. Well, as long as it's NHL licensed, I guess that's better than buying counterfeit. Doesn't smell all funny with like a puffy logo. Oh, really? Wow. The results for this one are pretty interesting so far too. Because there's like a big gap between S and B. All right. Get your vote in if you haven't already. Otherwise, I'm going to close this out in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. This one's going to be tough to judge. 38-7. 30-23. I'm thinking that because so this is crazy because they got 38% for S tier, and yet Boston got 30%, but it got 23% for B tier. So is it fair to rank the Avalanche ahead of the Bruins here? Maybe not. That's pretty neck and neck. I'll put them ahead of maybe the Penguins here. No, I don't even feel right doing that. I would think that they would slide in right about here based on what I've seen. But I might change this. If we get more people later on, we can always re-rank. What's up? How you doing, Dan? By the way, guys, Dan, I want to extend a shout out to him because he has already won the members NHL bracket, the NHL bracket challenge for our Twisted Wrister Hockey members. He gets an Adidas NHL jersey of his choice for that. So, not a bad idea to join memberships because you might get some amazing rewards in return. Just saying. All right. So, that's where I'm putting the Avalanche. It was really tough to gauge with the votes that we had there. Toria, not a happy camper. However, I think everybody's going to be a happy camper after watching what I have to show you here. So all I need 75 seconds of your time because the Avalanche in 2001, they won in 7 games against the New Jersey Devils, the same core of Devils who in 1995 swept the Detroit Red Wings. And this, my friends, is what you will be treated to on Thursday on Sudden Death Sports, our other channel. Here is Scott Stevens, who wrecked 5 Stanley Cup runs. Hold up, guys. For some reason, my voiceover didn't export, so I'll take care of that. We'll do the next team. How about that? My bad. All right. Let's go to the next team. I gotta extend a shout out to you, Dan, for supporting the channel. You get something in return. Who doesn't love that? All right. So here we go. Next team is the Red Wings. My God. So they got started by going to the final in 95 after, you know, getting ousted in the first round by the Sharks in 94. And then they went on to win back-to-back Stanley Cups. Then they would win 2 more in 02 and in 08. And there was, good continuity between their core of players. Of course, you had the captain, Steve Yzerman. You had Sergei Fedorov. You had Nicholas Lidstrom. You had Nicholas Kronwall. You had Vladimir Konstantinov early on. Later on, you had Brendan Shanahan. You had Chris Osgood. You even had Dominik Hasek later on. You had Henrik Zetterberg and Pavel Datsyuk. So, God, how many Hall of Famers were on those teams in total? At least 8, maybe 10 of them. I'm sure Dan could fill us in on that. But yeah, pretty nuts, guys. That I would think that even though they didn't win, 3 in a row or anything like that, I would think that of any remaining team, they could challenge for a spot in the S tier there as well. So. All right, we'll get you that Scott Stevens teaser in just a moment here. I accidentally muted my voiceover there, but I've just fixed it, so we'll get to that shortly. 08 was very different than 97. Yeah, let's take a look at that roster anyway. But yeah, my argument here was that over the years there was still some sort of continuity. Like there were players who were still left over. And so you would see a couple new faces come in while a couple other faces had left the organization, at least from a player standpoint. Not to mention you had Scotty Bowman coaching 3 of those teams, right? And then Babcock came in and won the Cup in 08. And not to mention they got back to the final the next year, which in the salary cap era, as you've seen, is not the easiest thing to do. All right. No Yzerman, Shanahan, and Fedorov. Oh, totally. They still had what? They still had Lidstrom. Lidstrom was the captain too. To go from Yzerman to Lidstrom, that's pretty epic. All right. How are the votes doing so far? We got 10 votes. Yeah, definitely keep those votes coming, guys. And yes, of course, one of the greatest moments in just NHL history has got to be 98 when the Red Wings brought Konstantinov onto the ice and let him hold the Stanley Cup. Like that's one of the coolest things, isn't it? If you haven't already, I'm sure a lot of you have. Watch the documentary "The Russian Five." That documentary's outstanding. It might be my favorite, honestly, and unrivaled, of course, between the Avalanche and the Red Wings. That one was very good too. All right, keep those votes coming, everybody. Yeah, Bear, and what I learned when I was watching Unrivaled was that Konstantinov was like, he could have been like a Scott Stevens in the NHL. Kronwall, yeah, I forgot about him. Madano, yeah, even Brett Hull, Darren McCarty, yeah, the grind line. They were around. At least 2 of them were around for, the bookends essentially, right? Yeah. All right. Well, we only have 10 votes, so we're going to have to make do with what we have here. So we'll close this out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So here we have 50, 20, 20, 10. All right. Where would I fit these teams. They won't be ahead of Montreal. What about the Islanders? They'll be behind them as well. Well, you know what? I can't wait to see the Red Wings return to their glory. Hopefully that comes very soon. Very, very soon. I'll put them in S tier. It's kind of hard not to. Maybe I'll slide them back down to the A tier if nobody else makes it in there. So we'll consider that. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about the Penguins. And then when I put up the poll, I'll roll the trailer for the upcoming video. How about that? All right, so we've got the all right, so we've got the Penguins here. Nice emojis there, Dan. Octopus in the wheel there. All right. So, yeah, and of course, this Penguins group, right? Their run started in 2008 when they lost to the Red Wings in 7 games with a 20-year-old captain, Sidney Crosby, at that time. They win the next year in 7 games. It was him, of course, Malkin, who himself, he won a couple of MVPs or Art Rosses. You had Chris Letang and Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, those were the big players. And then later on, they would add, of course, Matt Murray won one of the Stanley Cups for them. Well, he won 2, but he was had a bigger role in one of the 2. And then you also had the likes of Phil Kessel later joining them, Brian Dumoulin and Mike Sullivan as the head coach for 2 of those. Anyway, while you guys cast your votes, I'm going to roll a 75-second trailer for our video on Scott Stevens premiering Thursday on our second channel, Sudden Death Sports. Here we go. It's going to work this time.
The Stanley Cup playoffs are a 2-month grind, unlike anything else in professional sports. Players have trained for decades and put everything on the line for a chance to just once in their life hoist the world's most coveted trophy, a century-old relic etched with the names of the NHL legends who have raised it themselves. But from the mid-90s into the early aughts, teams were met with a challenge that even John Wick would call an impossible task. A final boss who showed no mercy for even the game's most respected stars, Scott Stevens. And no, this video isn't just a hits montage or the same old debate over whether or not he played dirty. His mark on the NHL, especially during the playoffs, transcends the evolution of the rules and the role of the shutdown defenseman. You see, it wasn't just Hall of Famers like Paul Kariya, Ron Francis, and Eric Lindros who felt the overwhelming force of Stevens' hits in the most crucial moments of their careers. It was entire 20-man teams. These are the 5 Stanley Cup runs that were wrecked by Scott Stevens.
So, again, that's going to be on Thursday on the other channel. Okay, so far we've got what? We've got 10 votes here. Make that 11. All right. Interesting. You guys have some high praise for them, that's for sure. So, yeah, I'll wait for a couple more votes to come in. You don't consider 2 cups of Dynasty. I mean, that's totally fair, Egginator. So I decided to loosely expand this because otherwise, we'd only have 3 or 4 teams to rank if we're talking about after the original 6 era. So the idea here is teams that have won multiple Stanley Cups with a similar core of players and that were able to still be competitive. And, in Pittsburgh's case, right, they also got to a separate final, even though they didn't win it. So that's why I kind of done it this way. To be fair. Yes, yeah. So I figured this would be kind of the best way to do it because, how knowledgeable are we when it comes to the original 6 dynasties? They're going to be teams that win, 3 cups in 4 years in that era pretty easily, right? Just got to authenticate something. All right, good. All right, so where are we gonna end up with this one? All right, let's call it at that. We're gonna end this in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, thank you for your patience. All right, so this 3 in a decade is kind of like a modern dynasty. Yeah, I would I would say it's probably about that too. Okay, so we got 30. Okay, this should be pretty easy to figure out. This to me is A tier. Yeah. Yeah, this is really easy. The Devils didn't get any votes for the S tier. And so when you combine S tier and A tier together, the Penguins rank better. But they're not quite at the top level, because those got much higher percentages, generally speaking. Stevens told him he let up on the Korea hit. Yeah, there's an interview with, I forget who produced it, but Korea and Stevens were both interviewed. And Stevens said that he let up on the hit as well. Go Nuggets and Panthers. I mean, I'll be happy if I'm cool with the Nuggets winning, but I like the idea of an 8 seed winning both. All right, but I hear you, right? It's like South Florida shouldn't be too greedy to win both. All right, let's go to the next one. So we got the Blackhawks in the 2010s. And of course, we're evaluating just the on-ice product for this, guys. Have at it. So the Hawks, they didn't go to any other finals, but I think 3 over the course of 6 seasons is a dynasty in the salary cap era. Of course, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, and Duncan Keith are like the big cornerstones to this team. You can throw in Brent Seabrook, who won 3 cups, and Patrick Sharp as well. Corey Crawford won 2 Stanley Cups with them. Brandon Saad, I think, won 2 as well. And and Joel Quenneville was the coach for all 3 of them. So yeah, I'm curious to get your thoughts. Dustin, what's up? I didn't see you there. Hello. I'm sure you are thrilled right now with the Knights in the final, and you probably also have your hands full with some other stuff, I'm sure too. Shock Trooper says the Devils had a greater run than the Penguins did. It's pretty darn close, I think, between the two. The Penguins did this in the salary cap era, but the Devils were more, I don't know. It's pretty close to call either way, I think. I think lip balm here. There we go. Hockey from home. What's going on? Thanks for hopping in. I see the Ovechkin profile picture. Of course, I wish that, in another world, somewhere out there in the parallel universe, we know that the Capitals would have had multiple Stanley Cups, and so would have the Sharks. Are you serious, Dustin? I am so sorry to hear about that. That's nuts. Oh my God. Well, I hope you're not in any pain, or at least have some sort of medications for that. God, I'm sorry to hear that. That's horrible. All right. How many votes do we have so far? 13 votes. All right, guys. We'll give you about 15 seconds, okay? If you haven't cast a vote just yet. You're in the hospital right now? Oh, my God. Wow. I'm sorry. It's the worst thing is not when you're in pain and have to go to the hospital. It's when you don't feel any pain and have to just sit there and wait it out. Get the good meds. Yo, if you were over here, I'd make sure you'd have the good meds. All right. Let's wrap this up in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So the Blackhawks, 42% get the highest rating, and yet 28% get the lowest rating. So it becomes more difficult. 21 and 7. Okay. So in terms of S tier, do they get a spot there? They might not quite make it there, but they would be at the front of the A tier. Yes, they would be. I think that's where we will place them. Because they don't grade out quite as high as the Red Wings, and they do have a higher percentage in the C tier. So I'm going to put the Hawks at the front of the A tier. I think that's fair. You pressed C when you meant to press S. Oh, geez. Maybe we'll do a face-off at the end of this to really iron out some of the details here. All right. Now we're going to start with we're going to move on to the Kings. Because, again, we're talking about multiple Stanley Cups with a similar core of players. All right. So, yeah, this Kings team consisted of course, Anze Kopitar, Drew Doughty, and Jonathan Quick. That's like the real core of them. And also Dustin Brown, actually, you know what? I'll loop him in there. That was their core four. Kopitar, Doughty, Quick, and Brown. Dirty Dustin Brown. Later on, of course, they would add Tyler Toffoli, and I think Marian Gaborik was on the team for just one of those two cups. And they were coached by Daryl Sutter. They never got back to the final, though. That was their only two trips to the final. However, the way that they got there and won both times is astounding, to say the least, as they were the only team as an 8 seed, or the lowest seed in the tournament in the field of 16, to win a Stanley Cup, excuse me. And yeah, it would actually be, wait a second, have the Kings won? The Kings haven't won a series since 2014, have they? Or am I wrong? 2017, did they win a series? I can't remember a time when they won a series after that. So we got 13 votes. I'll give you about 15 more seconds here, folks. Blackhawks were an all-time great, one of the best teams ever. Yeah, again, I mean, like, can you imagine a team winning 3 cups in 6 seasons in today's NHL? I don't think so. I don't think you could. You hated the Kings team? I think a lot of us did, for sure. But, I mean, looking back on it, those runs were amazing. As an 8 seed, they only lost a total, I think, of 6 games in those playoffs. Jonathan Quick, that was maybe the best goaltending performance of our time. And I mean, there have been some amazing performances in our era, right? If we're going back to the 1990s with the likes of Brodeur and Waugh. However, we have seen the reemergence of the unstoppable goaltender, and his name is Sergei Bobrovsky. What's going on, Owen? You think the ship has sailed? They could have won 4 straight. I mean, last year, you know, as good as their goaltending could be, you know, they just found a team that could kind of skate circles around them, for lack of a better phrase off the top of my head. All right, let's close this out in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. Not surprisingly, the 84% of your votes were in the B and C tier, and that's where we'll put them, exactly in the C tier. So yeah, I mean, like, in terms of longevity, that really didn't persist that much beyond 2014. So I think that's totally fair. Oh yeah, exactly, Bill. That's why the Stanley Cup playoffs are the best postseason tournament in professional sports, maybe on the planet. The only thing that can kind of rival it is like March Madness, but that's kind of a different beast, right? All right, so we're going to finish things off with the Lightning. we'll go here and add some options to the poll. Wait, did I just screw something up? All right. All right, so we're going to finish things off with the Bolts. So this all started in 2015 when they went to the final and lost to the Blackhawks. And I say that because they had some of that young core in place. Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman, and like Alex Killorn were part of that team. Andre Palat too, I forgot about him. And they went to the conference final one or two more other times before they actually got to the final in 2020. So they had something brewing, almost a decade ago. And they ended up going to, in the span of 8 years, they went to 4 Stanley Cup finals and they won 2 of them. And I mean, I know that their opposition and the circumstances were different when they won those cups, but they made it look pretty damn easy for the most part, winning those. So you got to tip the cap where you can. But anyway, that's just kind of my commentary on that. And I mean, like, yeah, Braden Point, for example, you have to add him into that equation. Their moves at the trade deadline were spectacular, getting players like Nick Paul and Barclay Goodrow. So yeah, we have 9 votes so far. So everybody keep the votes coming. Because Stevie Y built their foundation. I mean, yeah, he's a huge piece of it too. I didn't factor in general managers, but John Cooper has been the head coach this whole entire time too. He's the longest tenured head coach in the NHL, I'm pretty sure. Speaking of head coaches, I heard that Andrew Brunette is on the move once again. He's taking over for John Hines in Nashville. And also I don't know about this guy. Was it Carberry, who's the new head coach for the Washington Capitals? I like the idea of them going with someone a little bit more fresh, though, instead of kind of going back to the well like they did with Laviolette. I like that hire a lot at the time. But yeah, I think they need something a little bit more fresh in the locker room there because that core has been around for a while, and you've even seen a couple of those players traded out. So I think it's important that they have kind of a new voice, somebody who can give them a new perspective, and hopefully not, hopefully Ovechkin's remaining couple of years don't go to waste there. Although it's going to be a real uphill climb for them to just get back into the playoffs, I would have to say. Spencer Carberry. Was he an assistant with the Maple Leafs? Is that right? Yeah. Hey, all the best to him. All right, 10 votes so far. If we can get a few more to finish this up, that would be fantastic. Too many men. What was that? Was that in 2020? It rings a bell. I just can't seem to remember exactly. All right. Okay, so if we have to close it out, then used to be the head coach of the Hershey Bears. Okay, so he's gotten pretty deep, at least in the Calder Cup playoffs a bit, because they're almost always a pretty good program, or at least back in that time, you would think so. Who else? Oh yeah, Barry Trotz. Didn't he used to also coach the Hershey Bears? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Some other current head coach has had a lot of success with them. I actually have a Hershey Bears jersey myself. All right. Anyway, we have the needle's not really moving too much, so I'll close out this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. He knows the organization well. Yeah, well, hopefully he knows how to get past the first round, if you know what I mean. Let's see here. So 36, so 18, 18, 36, and 27. All right. So I would think that I would put this in the B tier, but relatively speaking, this has graded out a little lower. Like Philadelphia, for example, Philadelphia didn't grade out quite as badly, and they're in the B tier. So I'm going to put Tampa, even though, again, I think that what they've done is very impressive. Relatively speaking, though, I would put them at the bottom. So that's what our final rankings look like. I didn't have anything else on my mind. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll stick around for a couple minutes if anybody has anything else they want to discuss in regards to this topic or just the final in general. But if you have to go, please do leave a thumbs up before you peace out. That does help the channel. And hopefully I have something else to work on this week for you guys. So anyway, Cortana, I didn't even give you your treats, girl. What am I doing? That's whoop. There we go, girl. There's a goal. There's a goal treat when we haven't had any goals to celebrate for this week. Here we go. There you go. All right. Your boys won this. Yeah, the Red Wings. They made it to S tier, barely, but they did. Who do I think could be the next dynasty? That's a great question. I mean, I think that you have to have a good goal. I mean, you don't have to have a good goaltender to get to the Stanley Cup Final. You don't have to have an elite goaltender. Let me just say that. We saw that last year, and we're seeing it this year. But I still would side with a team that has a good goaltender. You know, look at what the Stars are doing. I know that they got their doors blown off, but they're succeeding at the AHL level. They're in the conference final there. The Steelheads here in Idaho, they've made the Kelly Cup final in the ECHL. You look at some of the players that they've drafted and their ages, and the likes of Heiskanen hasn't even hit his prime just yet. And you got Ottinger. I know he got lit up, right? And some people will say, well, maybe they need to change their coaches, but I wouldn't count out the Stars for being that kind of team eventually. So I'll if I have to point out somebody who's already competitive who could do that, that's a team that comes to mind. I'm looking at the LA Kings right now, just on my screen. I don't know if they'll have a dynasty, but they're a team that has a pretty good prospect pool. And players who haven't even gotten call-ups that much. I think Byfield tears it up next year a little bit, and I think that team could actually be a champion next year, believe it or not. Goaltending is a little bit of a question, but again, I know you're asking about a dynasty. Like, how about a team from the Atlantic Division, right? Look at, for example, the Buffalo Sabres, best prospect pool as it's been rated in the NHL. If Devin Levi is the guy, then that's probably the team. I would hope it would be them. So I think about them. The Red Wings have a lot of good pieces as well, so I wouldn't rule them out. I really like the Devils, although I'm not as confident about their situation in net right now, so I wouldn't put them quite on that same level. So yeah, those are the teams who are coming to mind right meow. The Wild, I wouldn't rule them out either. I mean, I know they have the longest drought, not winning a playoff series since what? I don't know. Since before I had facial hair, probably. So I would say don't rule out the Wild either, because you also have somebody like that in Jesper Wallstedt and other prospects like Marco Rossi. He hasn't gotten the time of day in the NHL just yet. So that's another team I've got my eye on. But yeah, if you have any follow-ups from that, let me know. The Avs should rank higher. Well, I mean, again, this is about the common core of players. So if the Avalanche win the cup next year and we revisited this topic, they would fit, because we're talking about multiple cups with the same core. Stars are in good shape, you think, too? At least my season predictions were hot garbage this year. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. But I got one thing right, and that was the Stars getting to the conference final. Tampa has maybe some more fight in them. I really think that trading out McDonough hurt them quite a bit. And man, that Jeannot trade was just, I mean, they didn't put his talent to good use. Either that or he just didn't show up with that same talent he showed the year before in Nashville. They are kind of a curious case. But, Tampa, they still have a very high performing group of like Stamkos, Kucherov, and Point. Like those guys are still monster, right? But I don't know. Let's see what a fresh offseason does for them. I think Vasilevsky especially is going to benefit from that. If the real Devils, or if the Devils are for real going forward, like I said, they're really fun to watch this year. But they got shut down by a team that matches up well against them. What do they need to do? You got to see what they do about Timo Meier, because they're going to have to let go a player or two. But defensively, they do have some great prospects too. So if they have to let somebody go, that's going to open up the door, for Luke Hughes to get more ice time, maybe for Seamus Casey to break in too. So yeah, I wouldn't put that past them. But yeah, the goaltending was pretty lackluster. I love Vanacek, but he can only take you so far. He can get you into the playoffs though. The Sabres, yeah, man, the Sabres are going to be an interesting team to watch too. I mean, that's one of those rare examples where both teams in a big trade benefit immensely. The Knights, Eichel has a good shot at winning the Conn Smythe this year, and Alex Tuch has breathed new life into that organization, and they've made, they're going to have some fun playing around with the assets that they got outside of just him. Are the Hurricanes becoming my Sonics always good? They choke. Now the Hurricanes didn't choke in this round against the Panthers. No, actually they outplayed the Panthers in 2, if not 3 of those games. It's just that they didn't finish. I don't think that's choking. I think they were the better team in at least 2 of those games. Do I think they could upgrade the goaltending? I do. They have a lot of free agents pending. Not to mention they did this without Andrei Svechnikov. And I think for them, they really failed at the trade deadline. I don't think they choked in the playoffs. If they choked at any point in the season, it was at the trade deadline. Because that team, otherwise, I think can be a Stanley Cup winner. I'm waiting for it. I'm really bullish on them. Reichel, Bedard, and Korchinski. I think you have to give that Eichel trade much more breathing room, to be honest, because the Sabres, they weren't even supposed to compete for a playoff spot this year, and they nearly got in. So that's a trade that the Sabres made for longevity's sake. You're back. Welcome back. Is it done in Steel Town for the Penguins? I would think so. I think that they've got too much money tied up in players like Jeff Carter. The Letang deal, it's going to kind of wear on them a little bit. Him and Malkin can still perform at high levels, but you look at that. You look at like the Granlund trade, for example. But I think he's a UFA, so maybe that doesn't matter as much. I don't know. They're with the Penguins. Tell me one thing that they do really well right now that they'll do really well next year. I don't really think you can find anything, to be honest. Oh, you got a Steelheads jersey, Dustin? Oh no. Oh my gosh. Oh man. Well, I hope that there's some painkillers or something like that can help you sleep better, because I know a hospital bed is not exactly the most comfortable. Having spent 4 nights consecutively in one myself when my lung collapsed in 2018. So I feel for you, and I hope that it's a seamless procedure, and that, of course, it's a good thing that the silver lining is that it happened right now so that you can enjoy the Stanley Cup Final recovered, or at least, conscious for it. So anyway, man, I hope that you're able to power through this, and that, you have some support there, so that you're not trying to get up from the couch or something like that when you shouldn't be. Hopefully the Steelheads win. I don't even know if it's a final. Has the final been set yet in the Kelly Cup. But yeah, I can't remember the last time the Steelheads ever won it, to be honest with you. The Florida Everblades, is it going to be? No, I think the Eastern Conference Final between the Everblades and the Newfoundland Growlers is still going on. So they'll face the Idaho Steelheads. Go Steelheads. Anyway, all right, guys, my stomach is starting to growl, and Cortana here probably wants some attention because I think we're tapped out of these. So she probably wants some head scratches right now. So going to wrap up. Thank you so much for hanging out. Again, if you can, ding the thumbs up before you go. And hopefully I can reconvene with you very soon. All right. Have a great night, everybody, and get ready for one heck of a Stanley Cup final. That's for sure. The only person that I know who saw this coming was Flying Fluffy Hockey. All right. Good night, guys.